So Rolling Stone just released another one of their infamous lists. They've made some controversial ones in the past. They have a bunch of top 100 albums or whatever. And the Rolling Stone is just kind of notorious for having pretty shitty takes. So today, they just released the 50 greatest superhero movies of all time. Now, my nerdy side on this channel only comes out every now and then, and I don't even know if you could consider superhero movies nerdy anymore because they're like the most popular thing on the market. But, I grew up with them. I'm a big fan of a ton of them. To see how my favorite superhero movies will contrast with this list and to get a good idea of where my tastes lie, here's my top 15 superhero movies of all time. Just bam. And let's see if we can find any bad takes in here. Warning, I have probably not seen at least half of these, so I'm not entirely in the position to judge this list in its entirety, but and you can say that and you'd be right, but we're gonna do it anyways. So number 50, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I haven't seen this one, but I have seen of it, I mean, I appreciate that they were able to do this, but I mean that like Oscars cheer moment or whatever was so embarrassingly bad. So yeah, I'm gonna have to. I don't really care for that one. No idea what this is, but it looks interesting. Okay, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, my number 4 on my list. And I know it's associated nowadays with the male manipulator movies and blah blah blah, but it's just so funny and well directed and creative. And no, I'm not someone who self-inserts as Scott. Thank you very much. Now, as goofy as the 60s Batman seems today, at the time, it was pretty cool, allegedly. And you gotta give this props because up to this point, there weren't really a lot of comic book superhero movies. So while I have never seen this one personally, I can definitely respect it for what it is. Okay, now this is kind of ridiculous. Thor 2011 being better than Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is fucking insane. This makes me think that if they made a top 50 worst superhero movies of all time, this would probably still make the list. No idea why this is even on here. The Avengers 2012. I'm not personally a fan of the first Avengers movie. I think leading up to this point, all the superhero movies that the characters that are starring in it are based on, the ones that I've seen at least were just okay. And I just thought the plot was just generic and boring. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Uh, I can kind of agree with this placement. It did some pretty bold stuff for an MCU movie. Loved Raimi's direction and the horror elements and Danny Elfman's score as always. Yeah, it definitely wasn't perfect, but it was a fun one. I really like this one. I'd probably consider it one of my favorite MCU movies. Now, the Batman at 37 is very interesting. Look, when I left the theater for Batman, I was not as crazy about it as everyone else seemed to be. I really liked the direction, some of the shots were excellent. I didn't like Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne that much, and I thought the relationship between him and Catwoman was kind of cheesy. But overall, I there were so many scenes in this that I found really enthralling, and I really like this one. So I guess 37 isn't the worst placement. I would put it a little bit higher, probably. I don't know. I don't know. It's yeah, all right. It's fine. It's fine. Blade 2. I really want to get to watch the Blade movies. I haven't seen them, but I'm a big Guillermo del Toro fan. So, considering I'm a huge Hellboy fan, I imagine I would enjoy this one. Shang-Chi. I thought was very overrated. I thought the story was pretty generic. The CGI was terrible. I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it very charming. I didn't really like Shang-Chi. The Crow, good pick. I would put it a little bit higher, but this is fine where it is, I think. I think Batman Begins works really well as like a Batman movie. I don't think it was anything as groundbreaking as The Dark Knight or anything, but it's a good movie. Number 27, Hellboy. Nice, nice. I think the first one's not quite as good as the second one, so I'm really hoping the second one shows up further down this list. I appreciate Batman Returns for its art style and its weirdness. Do I think it's better than some other things on this list, like Hellboy or Scott Pilgrim? No. Do I think it's better than Batman Begins? Yeah, probably. This is seeing Burton at like the peak of his creativity and signature style. Now, I kind of appreciate what Deadpool does in the sense that it's an R-rated movie of a popular Marvel superhero. You know, I appreciate, you know, the language and the violence and how that's considered bold or whatever. But first of all, it wasn't the first one to do it. Like, The Punisher came out before this, and Blade, and I think a few others. And honestly, Deadpool's story is just not really all that exciting. The only thing entertaining about this movie is Deadpool himself. RoboCop in number 22. I guess you can consider this a superhero movie. I didn't really consider it one, but yeah, that's a good pick. I think that's in a pretty decent spot. Number 21, Doctor Strange. Yeah, I think I'd put it lower, but it is a good one. It's definitely a visual treat and is one of the better looking MCU movies for sure. Batman: The Mask of Phantasm. Interesting. I have not seen this movie. I don't think. Maybe I watched it like when I was a kid, but this is really interesting that they put this here. X2, baby. Let's go. Let me try to phrase this correctly. I think Logan is the best X-Men movie, but I think X2 is the best X-Men movie. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the plot and the characters are more mature than the first. We get some excellent Wolverine sequences as well as showcasing all the other cool powers in the film. This is just an all-around solid superhero movie. It's just a fun one to sit through. Avengers: Infinity War. Even though this one didn't make my top 15 list, I would maybe put it a little bit higher just because of how big of a deal it was, and I do think it's probably the one of the best MCU movies. Definitely think it's better than Endgame. I think Thor Ragnarok is the best MCU movie, but I think Loki, the TV series, is like the best Marvel Cinematic Universe piece of media in general. But anyways, I digress. Guardians of the Galaxy is a this is a decent placement. This one kind of stands out on its own. This was somewhat during the beginning of the MCU, and it's just a fun standalone movie. Like, there's nothing. A lot of what I like about a lot of the early MCU movies is that, like, they don't have to tie into a bunch of other crap. Like, this one is just a fun standalone movie, and it's quite the ride. And I don't mind 15 placement. That's not too bad. Okay, this one. Start throwing some hands. People don't seem to realize these days how influential Spider-Man really was. I mean, every time you see a CGI shot of a superhero flying through the air or doing whatever, like, that's Spider-Man did that first. It also showed that superhero movies could be taken seriously, as it was a huge summer blockbuster hit. And it's just an all-around really good movie. It's not quite as good as the second one, but it's fun. It's comic-y. It's heartfelt. It's just an all-time classic. I see. Here's the thing. Like, my top 15 list is like my personal taste, but like, if we're talking like just actually the best superhero movies of all time, I think Spider-Man should at least be top 5. X-Men: Days of Future Past. Now, this is a really good one. Don't get me wrong. This is one of the best X-Men movies for sure. I could see how someone would think it's better than X2. Personally, I don't think it is. It's close, though. It is a good one. A lot of people put First Class as their favorite, and I don't really like First Class. I think it's just boring and cheesy. But Days of Future Past is like kind of a nice wrap-up to the X-Men series if they actually wrapped it up here. And it's got a captivating plot, and it's got all the best characters and some great scenes. I don't think it's quite as good as some of the ones that come before it, but you know, it's all right. I'll accept it. But like, seriously, like, how the hell is this better than Spider-Man 1? I don't get it. Okay, all right. No. 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 Look, Spider-Man Homecoming's fine. It's fine. I get what they were going for. They were doing like a John Hughes Spider-Man thing, which on paper is a good idea, and you know, it was executed pretty well as well. But to me, this is just a very average superhero movie. I don't think Vulture is really all that exciting as a villain. And I know it's been said over and over and over again, but I mean, this version of Spider-Man is definitely not the truest version of Spider-Man that we've seen due to his robotics and, you know, all that crap. I think the original Spider-Man did the character, and just the movie itself was just so much better. I'm very disappointed in this. I would put this like if this was on this list, I would put it probably in the 40s maybe. The Incredibles at number 10. Can't complain there. Great Pixar movie. Some people say it's the best Pixar movie. I disagree. In my opinion, that would be Wall-E, but yeah, it's a good one. Thor Ragnarok being at number 8. That's almost exactly where I put it on my top 10 or whatever, but yeah, that's just it's such a good MCU movie. The MCU is the best when it doesn't take itself seriously, which is also why I think Guardians of the Galaxy is great as well. You're just there to have a good time and have a few laughs and, see some stupid action scenes, and that's really what this movie is. And the power dynamics in this movie are fun as well. I mean, Thor going up against his more powerful sister is a treat to watch. And I mean, come on, the Thor versus Hulk scene is just iconic. I mean, who wouldn't want to watch that? Dark Knight at number 7. I think it should be higher. Of like the most influential superhero movies of all time, The Dark Knight goes like kind of hand in hand with Spider-Man. The Dark Knight took blockbuster superhero movies and turned it into something more serious and dark and realistic, I should say. Do I think the Joker has been ran into the ground since then? Absolutely. I do not want to see any more live action Jokers. In fact, I could go without seeing a live action Batman movie in like 20 years. But yeah, The Dark Knight's a classic. Am I disappointed in this placement? Just a little bit. It's still in the top 10. So it's fine, but I definitely think it should be a little bit higher. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, that's a good take. The animation and story in this are just phenomenal. Definitely up there with the best Spider-Man movies. Some would consider it the absolute best. I think Spider-Man 2 is better, but this, I wouldn't complain if they say that because this one's just fantastic. Haven't seen the original Superman, but this was kind of a big deal from what I can understand. So yeah, I'm not going to get too into this, but I can appreciate this placement. No. 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 First of all, Infinity War is better. I think that Thanos was a much more captivating villain in Infinity War than he was in this. He was barely even present in this, and when he did show up, he was just a shell of his former self. He wasn't really threatening or anything. And while I thought this movie was decent, all the fan service and, the Soy Jack moments are a little much. Definitely not a top 10 movie. Number 3, Logan. That's a good take. What I think is so good about Logan is that it's kind of unlike any other superhero movie in the sense that instead of rooting for the superhero or like enjoying seeing the superhero kick ass, every time that Wolverine gets into a fight in this movie, like you don't want it to happen. Like this man is frail. He could break at any second. So it's like almost painful to watch him fight people, which I haven't got from any other superhero movie personally. And it's fun just to see a rated R version of Wolverine because I think this is like the truest version of who his character should be. Yeah, Logan's great. Top 3. I wouldn't say top 3 quite, but it's definitely top 10. Spider-Man 2, baby. Bam. I think, in my opinion, this is just the best superhero movie of all time. It's just got a perfectly crafted plot, excellent fight scenes, likable characters, an incredibly written villain, good direction, it's super heartfelt, it blows the first one out of the water. It's just great all around. I have a feeling that the first one is going to be... It's probably going to be Black Panther. Yep. Look, Black Panther is a good movie. It's definitely one of the better MCU movies, but I definitely would not consider it the best superhero movie of all time. I think it's entirely overrated in that regard. It's a captivating underdog story. Some of the visuals are really cool, but at the same time, some of the CGI can be really shitty. I think it's just fine. It's good, but like there's nothing that stands out to me about this movie as much as Spider-Man 2 or I just realized that Hellboy 2 isn't even on this list. That's a crime. How do they put the first one in the top 20s, but they didn't even have Hellboy 2, and Hellboy 2 is even better. They didn't have Watchmen on here, which is kind of understandable. I can see why some people don't like it because it's not quite as good or not nearly as good as the graphic novel, but I mean, you can't really expect it to be. They didn't have Flash Gordon on this list. They didn't have Kick-Ass on this list. They didn't have Birdman. Yeah, Black Panther, yeah, it should have a place on this top 50, but number one, no way. Yeah, I don't think I'm as pissed as the actual placements on this list, but more the lack of some really good superhero movies. I just want to talk to the person who wrote this, and I want to ask them, hey, where's Hellboy 2? Where's Flash Gordon? Where's Chronicle? I mean, those are just some of my favorites, but I mean, come on, all three of those movies are easily better than fucking Thor 2011. Moral of the story, Loki is the best piece of MCU content.